Hey everyone, thanks for joining us today. It's a very nice day for us. Over this weekend, we just released the new version of Visual Builder Studio. And over the next couple of weeks, we are also going to upgrade your servers. And we wanted to dedicate these office hours to give you an update on what's new in Oracle Visual Builder in the August release of 2021. It's called internally the 21.10 release. So with me on the line are also Laura and Murtaza. They will be monitoring the Q&A panel. So if you have any questions during these sessions, feel free at any point of time, just tap on the Q&A tab that you have there. Write your questions there. Laura and Murtaza will be answering. My name is Shai, if you're not familiar with me. And we're all from the product management team at Oracle that works on Visual Builder and Visual Builder Studio. So the August release, the 21.10 release, rolled out to your Visual Builder Studio instances over the weekend. So starting from Friday and Saturday, if you went into Visual Builder Studio, you actually got the new version already there. You don't need to do anything. It's already there. If you open the service console or anywhere else and you click Help About, you would see the new version. We're doing it in stages, and the next thing that we're going to do is we're going to start to update your servers, right? Now, you don't need the servers to be upgraded to use a lot of the new features that are in Visual Builder Studio. You do need a Visual Builder Studio interface, though, to do that. If you're still using the design time that is part of your Visual Builder or Oracle Integration Cloud, then those would be updated over the next couple of weeks, 2-3 weeks, depending on the window, the upgrade window that you chose for your instance. So this is something that is relatively also new in Visual Builder. You can now decide if you want your server to be upgraded in what we call window 1 or window 2. Window 1 gets updated earlier than window 2. We try to keep about 2 weeks between the two of those. This is very useful for organizations where you have multiple instances of Visual Builder, one, for example, for development, and another one is the production, and you want to stagger the upgrade. So you first upgrade the development instance, and then you upgrade the production. You can now control this. If you go to your tenant settings in Visual Builder, you would see there the patch window, which is what you see over here on the right side, and you can set whether to get your instance or a specific instance upgraded in window 1 or window 2. The advantage of getting updated at window 1 is you get the new features, bug fixes, and everything else earlier than window 2. There's a similar feature in Oracle Integration Cloud. So if your runtime of Visual Builder is part of the Integration Cloud, there's also a way for you to control this over there. It's done at the OIC server setting. There's a tagging mechanism to do that. We have a blog on our blog, the VBCS blog, that covers this and has a link to the instructions on how to do it on both VB and OIC. In any case, in the next couple of weeks, your instances are going to get to start be upgraded, and you can start using it over there. But as we said in previous sessions, we highly recommend that you transition your development environment to use Visual Builder Studio because it gets updated earlier and because there's also a lot of features that are only there, especially around integration with Git and capabilities for team development. As with previous upgrades, these upgrades include an upgrade of the runtime client-side libraries. Okay, so we now have support for Jet 10.1.3 built into this version, and we upgraded the VB runtime libraries to version 21.10. When the control of when your application picks up those new libraries is in your hand. We don't automatically upgrade your application to use these libraries. If you go to your application settings, there's an option there to upgrade the current libraries that you're using to the new libraries. In general, we don't expect problems upgrading from one version of those libraries to the next one. However, as always, it's always good to take a backup of your application with the previous settings and then do the upgrade. One other thing that we are now doing is we let you continue development with older versions of the libraries up to 2 versions earlier. So since we're upgrading to 21.10, 21.7 and 21.04 are still supported. But if your application is using an older version of the VB runtime, in order to continue to develop it, you would need to upgrade to a later version. And we, of course, recommend upgrading to the latest version. As we said, we don't expect any major issues when upgrading from one set of the libraries to the other. The other thing that we keep needing to mention to people is if you're using the SAS theme, okay, which is one of the templates that we provide in Visual Builder, there's a new version of this SAS theme that is matching the version of JET and the VB runtime. So when you're upgrading your runtime libraries to the new version, make sure that you also download and install the new version of the SAS template. And again, we have a blog entry on the VBCS blog that covers how to do that step by step. Should be easy, should be seamless migration. So hopefully you're all going to get your application upgraded very quickly, and then you'll be able to enjoy the new features that we are introducing this month. So let's start by covering some of the features in the visual application development space. And the first feature to talk about is progressive web apps, PWAs for web apps. So up until now, we have been allowing you to create a packaging of mobile application as progressive web apps. And again, progressive web apps are applications that basically install on your device. Okay, you get an icon for the application. It can work with the device feature. It can even have offline capabilities if you want to. The distribution of those applications, however, is not through an app store, but rather people go to a URL, they open the application in their browser, then they get prompted to install it on their homepage, or they can choose to do it from the menu, and then it becomes an icon on their application. And the nice thing is that every time that someone updates the application, so when you as a developer updates the application, the updates would automatically be propagated to the devices of the user. So they don't need each time to go and download the new version of the application. Okay. So up until now, we've been doing this for mobile applications. And by the way, one thing that we announced in the documentation, if you haven't noticed, is that going forward, progressive web apps is the way that we're going to support mobile applications. So if you know, in Visual Builder, there are 2 ways to package your mobile application, either as what we call a hybrid application, where you create an iOS or Android build configuration, and then you get an APK or IPA that you upload to the store, or as a progressive web app. At Oracle, we believe that progressive web apps are the right way to go to the future. This is how we're doing, or what we're doing with all the applications that we're developing inside Oracle going forward in our Oracle Cloud applications. And as a result, we announced basically the deprecation of the hybrid packaging. So it's still available for you. You can still do hybrid packaging for the next couple of years probably, but we highly recommend that you go to progressive web apps. We're going to be fixing issues or bugs in the hybrid packaging for the time being, but we're not going to introduce new features there. So the new features are going into progressive web apps, and we recommend that you go that way. Now, what we do new in 21.10 is not only can you take a mobile application and package it as a progressive web app, you can actually do it for a web application. So in your web application under setting, there's a checkbox for progressive web apps, and this allows you to take any web application and distribute it as a progressive web app and enjoy all the benefits of running on the device and the capabilities that progressive web apps give you. This, by the way, makes it almost redundant to have the mobile option for creating an application. You can now basically create any web application, just build it in a responsive way, set a responsive layout for your pages, and you have one application that would run great on a mobile device and in a web browser. The next feature that we're going to talk about is the fact that action chains that you're creating now going forward are going to be created in a separate file. Okay, and this is very important for people who are working in large teams and are trying to collaborate on an application. What this allows them to do is reduce the amount of conflicts between two developers that are working on the same page and are creating various areas on the page or various capabilities. By having the action chains created in a separate file, we're reducing the chances of having conflicts or having issues when you merge code from two developers who are working on the same page. So what you're going to see is, this is basically a screenshot from your application navigator and the files. And when you have a page, you're going to have the HTML file, the JS file, and the JSON file. And then you're going to have a folder where all your action chain, each action chain is saved as a separate JSON file. Again, the action chains are those diagrams that describe the flow of your business logic. Okay. Now, this is going to happen for every new action chain that you're creating. It automatically is going to be created as a new file. Okay. One thing that we also allow you to do is take existing action chain and convert them to be in separate files. Okay, so we're not doing it automatically. We don't want to mess anything in your application or any configuration that you have. But in most cases, this is something that you would want to do. Go over to your application, right-click and convert existing action chains to be in separate files. It's going to make your maintenance and, again, development in team a lot easier. And it's also going to make your loading of pages faster because we load a smaller JSON file. Okay, it's also going to make it easier to work in the code editor because, again, the file is going to be smaller because each action chain is pulled out to a separate file. A response time in the design environment is going to be faster that way. Another new thing that we did is we did a redesign of the page flow diagram. Okay, we applied some of the best practices from our Redwood design pattern over to the page flow diagram to give you a better way to look at the overall structure of your application. So when you're clicking on your application level, which is what you're seeing on the right side, or if you're clicking on a specific flow, you're going to see a diagram that looks like what you're seeing on the right side, where you can see, for example, the shell page, the various flows that we have here. We have 3 page flows. Inside the page flow, you can see the different pages, and you can also see subflows over here. All of those areas can expand and collapse. They also highlight if you have errors or issue in a specific flow, you're going to see it directly here. When you click on a page, other pages are going to highlight the relationship. So for example, if I click on this page, you can see this page highlights the fact that from this page, we navigate to this page. This is this arrow. If I click on the other page, you're going to see the arrow going in the other direction from the other page. So this is the new look for our page flow diagram. Hopefully, it's going to make it easier for you to navigate in your application structure, especially when you're looking in big applications where you have multiple files in there that you need to explore and understand the structure and relationship between them. And then we did a bunch of enhancement on Git, but maybe before we go there, let's switch over for a second and see a demo of some of the capabilities that we just mentioned. So I'm gonna go into, again, my design time environment. I'm gonna remove this icon. I don't actually need it on this page. And we're going to just, this is again, a web application that we're working on. If we click on it, you can see, again, we have 3 page flows over here. Inside the page flow, I can see, again, I can expand and collapse this. So again, if I have a lot of those components and a lot of flows in my application, it's going to be easier to look that way. And then I can drill down into a page and see what's happening. When I click on this page, I can see that the shell page is also highlighted because there's a relationship between my page and the shell page. The shell page is, of course, the surrounding template for my page. If I then go over and create a new subflow, for example, if I go over here, oh, this is another new thing. You can see that by default in the navigation over here, we don't show subflows, the folder. It would only show up if you click here and you say, I want to create a flow. Okay, so if we call this subflow 1 or nested flow 1, okay, and create it, it's gonna appear over here, of course, opening up. But if we go back to the application I was looking in it's now part of my bigger user flow because it's now under here. Okay, then if I go over to the user page and I add a flow container and I place it over here, for example, and then in the setting for this page, I say that I'm using subflow 1 in there. Then if you go over to the navigation, this is highlighted when I click on this page. Okay, so again, this is the flows inside a nested flow inside another flow. Okay, again, if I go over and I create another page in this flow, okay, so let's call this one page 2. Okay, it's gonna appear in my diagram over here. And if I'll actually add navigation from one page to the other, there would be highlights in buttons over there. So if I go over, for example, and let's pick up a button. Okay, and we'll add a navigate icon or an action to navigate to the other page. Okay, navigate to page 2. This should show up in my diagram now when I click on a page. So you can see when I'm on page 2, when I'm clicking on it, it's going to show me that I'm navigating from page 1 over here. When I click on page 1, it's going to show me from here, you're navigating into page 2 with the green arrow that you're seeing up here. So this is some of the new things in our page flow diagram. Again, trying to make things a little bit more organized. Let's go back to my application over here. And actually, we're going to clean it up a little bit. Okay, and let's add a couple of buttons up here. We're going to add a "Where are you" button, and we're going to add another button, let's say over here. Actually, instead of a button over here like that, let's pick up our camera component and add a camera button in here. Can actually remove this button. We don't need it. And let's add an image component down here. Okay, and actually we'll also add an input text. So what I want to show is I want to show you that when I'm building now a little application, I'm going to create a couple of variables here. I'm going to make this application a mobile application. So I'm going to add the ability to use some device feature to take a picture and get our location. Okay, so the take photo, we're going to add an event on it. On the camera button, the action event. And when it takes a picture, we're going to take the result and we assign it. Sorry, I picked up the wrong action chain, I think. Let's go back. Yeah, sorry, I should have, yeah, the camera, there's an action on it, select files. And when we're clicking on it, we're going to do an assign variable and we're going to take the files that were fetched and we're going to put it inside the image variable. Create object URL. This will convert them to a URL to an image. So this would take care of the camera. And then there's another button over here. And in this button, we're going to get your location. So again, we're using device features like the ability to get the location of where the device is. And as a result, we're going to take the location you're in and assign it to the location. So we're going to take from the geolocation, we're going to take your latitude and longitude, put them here, and we can prompt by saying something like, you are here. Okay, and do something like that. Right, so that should be our functionality. So this is now all in a web application that we created. Now, one of the things you can do now for a web application, if you go into settings, is you have this PWA option over here, and you can enable progressive web app. Okay, and this will allow you to basically take this application and deploy it as an application that runs on devices. Okay, so now that we did this, we can actually go over and push those changes into our branch. We'll do a added PWA app. Okay, and then the next thing we can do is we can also publish our application over here and create a merge request for that. And I'm going to add Jeff as a reviewer. I'm going to add myself as a reviewer to those code changes. And this would lead me into a couple of other enhancements. So one of the things you can see here is this prompting me to ask me for the username and password that are needed in order to do the deploy step. So if you've been working with Visual Builder Studio for a while, you know that there are build jobs in there that do the deployment step. By default, we don't know under which user you want to do the deployment, but now it actually prompts you like that to get the username and password if you didn't fill it out. So you don't have to run the job and the job fails. It would actually take care of it for you. It's a little enhancement we put in here. And now we put in the merge request into the code. Okay. So if we now go over to the merge request, as Shai, I would see this new merge request over here on the branch of feature 1. Okay. And I can see there are 60 files that were changed. Okay. So I wanted to show you a couple of enhancements around the Git while we're working here that we added in the new version. Okay. So one of those things is the ability to do stash and unstash operation. So stash is a way for you in Git to take your changes and save them on the side, but without actually having to commit them. Okay, so you're not actually committing the changes, you're just saving them on the side, and then you get back to the clear status you were before you made all those changes. This is very useful, for example, if you realize that you made the changes on the wrong branch of the code. You can then stash them, switch branch, and then reapply them, what we call unstash. And you can do this in various save points. Basically, you can save multiple stashes this way, and then pop them up as needed. Okay. The other enhancement that we did in the Git area is a diff of a file. So this allows you to compare a file to previous state of the file, and either to the head of your state or to other versions of the file that you committed, and then see the changes at the file level. So this is, again, very helpful when we're working in teams. Since we're already talking about, so let me show you those things over here. I'll show you this actually, okay. So you know what, I'm gonna go ahead with the slide a little bit, and then we'll go over to the demo and show that part. So one other new functionality that we added to Visual Builder is tracing of actions on the business object side. So remember, business objects are running in your VB server or OIC server. They access a database, they work with data. Those are business objects that you build with VB. And one of the new functionality we introduced here is the ability to get a log of all the operations they did. You get this view over here of all the operations. You can then click on an operation and get a detailed information about the spans and what happened in every span. So you can see the timing for each one of those. And then you can further drill down to see the actual explain plan of how the access to the database was done. So you can see, for example, whether you're accessing your tables using an index, okay, or whether you're doing a full table scan. You can see the actual query that is being sent. All of those things are going to help you better tune your database interactions when you're working with Visual Builder, okay? The other thing that we added, some of you are using Groovy function on business object to create complex business logic. Those business logic functions sometimes take quite a long time because you're doing manipulation of, let's say, thousands of records. There was a timeout on those operations. Now this timeout is configurable at the function level. So when you're creating a new function, you can specify the timeout for this Groovy operation to be higher than the default if you want to allow situations where you're running longer operations. These functionalities, by the way, will require an upgrade of your server side. So you're not going to see it in Visual Builder Studio, but if you're inside Visual Builder or OIC, once those get upgraded to 2110, you're going to see this functionality appear over there. There's a bunch of other enhancement in the UI area and overall in the product. When you're creating new business objects and you're creating fields, you can now directly from the menu here, not just create a regular field, you can also create formula field and aggregated fields in business objects directly from the menu with one step. So previously you needed to create a field and then go over and set the formula or aggregation. Now you can do it in one simple step. The UI is going to now default in terms of size to the fit to canvas. So you're going to get the maximum area possible to see your screen based on how your IDE layout is set. You can, of course, then change it to see it on a wide screen, small screen, a mobile device, and see how your application would look like. Another enhancement, again, we talked about this, the flows. You're only going to see the flow subfolder if you have subflows. And when you click the plus button, you can create either a page or a flow from here. You don't need to go into the flows and create a subflow. And we also showed you the missing deployment credentials prompt that we're using in our deployment steps. And another small enhancement is the ability to use icons from the Redwood library of icons. So if you now add an icon to your application and you click the little icon over there, you're going to get a library of over 200 icons that Oracle designed that you can now leverage, including a filter at the top that allows you to look up for specific icons, helping you achieve more alignment with the overall Oracle Redwood UI that we're using internally. You can also preview those icons in various sizes. Right. Let's talk about some of the features in the project and DevOps space in Visual Builder Studio. So one of the key new capabilities that we added is the ability to do CI/CD, continuous integration and continuous deployment to Oracle Integration Cloud artifacts, to integrations. Okay, so many of you are using Visual Builder as part of an integration product, part of an integration project. Part of your integration project is a bunch of integrations that you're creating, fetching data from multiple places, manipulating it, meshing it up to, and then creating REST interfaces. Now you can manage the life cycle of those integrations the same way that you manage the life cycle of your Visual Builder artifacts. You can basically, with a build job, export the artifacts from one instance of integration and then automate the importing it of those artifacts into another instance of integration. Okay, so there are two built-in steps that we put in our job configuration under Oracle integration for export and import of an integration, and also the ability to delete an integration if you want to clear something in your environment in that case. When you're importing an integration, you can also indicate whether you want it to be active when you import it. And also when you're importing or exporting, you can choose which version of the integration you want to pull. And we show you all of those. We actually have code or insight into the integration in your instance from Visual Builder Studio. And of course, it all works together with the environments feature in Oracle Visual Builder Studio, where you can create a new environment that maps to the Oracle Integration Cloud instance. Okay. For merge request, we did several enhancements for this process of basically reviewing what people have changed in the code, giving them feedback, and having a discussion in our team, doing kind of peer development. Several things that we added here. We realized that a lot of cases, people who are merging code have a lot of files that have changed, and especially when you're working, for example, in Visual Builders applications, you have for each page, you have at least 3 files, and now you would actually have more because each action chain is a separate file. So we wanted to allow you to more easily browse the files that were changed. We created a new tree view for those files, so you can expand and collapse areas and see just the areas that are interesting for you. This also allows us to show you more of the file and see a full file preview. You can also filter the file, so you can, for example, say, okay, I'm just interested to seeing what were the changes in a JavaScript file or an HTML file, or just look up a specific file by name and just look at that one. All of this is under the changed files that you would see in your merge request process. The other thing with merge request is that a lot of people are using it, again, to have a conversation on the code. For example, for the team lead to give feedback to the junior developers and help them create better code. Up until now, you could have just put in comments on the code and then reply on those comments. What we now added is indication on comments, where when you add a comment, you can say this requires attention. And then the other developer would see this as a kind of a to-do and indication on the code comment. So they know that they need to do something. Once they do this change, they can mark this as resolved or as addressed, and then this comes back to the person who gave the comment and they can mark it as resolved. So we have this tracking of not just giving comments, but actually making sure that someone addressed those comments and resolved them. Then when you're looking through your code review and the conversation, we allow you to hide and show aspects. For example, you can hide all the resolved issue, so you only get a view of the things that still need to be addressed by you. One more feature is the ability for people who weren't initially invited into a code review to indicate that they do want to join a code review. There's a new Add Me button that allows you to say, hey, I want to go into this code review and be one of the people who review this code. This is especially important, again, for people who feel kind of responsible for code areas and want to make sure that changes that are being applied are indeed what they want to happen there. So even if someone forgot to add you for a code review, you can add yourself into a code review. Another enhancement in the previous release of Visual Builder Studio, we added the concept of user groups, where you can not just add individual users, but actually create groups of users, package them together, and then do things at this group level. For example, add a group of people as reviewer for a merge review. This was something that org administrations were able to do. We now moved it so every user can create, every project user can create user group of their own. Okay, so if you have specific set of people that you want to create as a group, you can now go and do it in your organization tab. Those are your groups, and then you can use those groups in various places in your project. Again, in code reviews, for example, or one of the new features is you can now use groups as part of the settings for build jobs and the security of a build job. You can mark a build job to be private one, and then only allow a group of people, okay, or individual users to run those build jobs. So this allows you, for example, to control who can run the build job that does deployment to our production instance. Okay. Another very important thing is that you can create build jobs that are mapped to IDCS groups. Okay, so we created a group of users in VB Studio that is mapped to a group that is defined in IDCS. And now we also automatically synchronize those two for you. So you can do those changes and managing users in one place in IDCS, and this would propagate into the groups that are defined in Visual Builder Studio. Okay, so before I'll point you to where to learn more, let's return to our application and look at some of the new features we just mentioned. I'm going to go into the project now as Jeff, again, another one of our developers. He goes into the project. He has a merge request that was assigned to him. Okay. And again, in the merge request, he can see there's like 60 files that were added. Okay. So again, we're showing this now as a tree over here, making it easier to navigate. We can filter the tree. For example, if I'm just interested to see the action chains, I can say, hey, I'm just interested to see the JSON files over here. And then when I expand it for each one of those, I'm just going to see the JSON files. Okay. So for example, I can see we have a page here and we have the actions on that one. Let me remove this. This would give me the view that at least I'm used to, which is I can look at my flows and we have the user flow. And again, under a specific page, you would now see different action chains in a tree over here. So you can go and see each one of the action chains and click on it to see what exactly was changed over here. Okay. So for example, maybe we have an issue with the message that someone wrote here, because it says you are here and it gives them the longitude, but we forgot to mention the latitude. So we can give a comment on this line, okay? And we can say, need to mention lat. Okay, and then we can mark this as need attention. Okay, so this is now marked as Jeff put something that needs attention. If I now switch over to look at it from the perspective of Shai, we'll go to the conversation view. We'll do a reload here. Okay, and now we would see the comment from Jeff. Okay, we can also order this with the newest being at the top. And I can see, hey, Jeff has a mention here of something that needs to change. Okay, so I can go back to my code. Let's go back to our page. We have the where are you button with the action chain. And I can go over here to the assignment. And I can modify the code. Like that. And we'll do a save. And we'll do a push. Okay. Like that. All right. So then I can go back into my little area over here, and I can reply to this comment, and I can say added the lat. Okay, and I can mark this as this is now addressed. Okay, so now again the color coding here changed to addressed. If Jeff goes back to his view of the conversation, okay, he can now see the changes. So if I do a refresh here, to do refresh, okay, he can say that I added the lat here, okay, and he can mark this, for example, as okay, this is good now, okay, and mark this as resolved. So this is how we can kind of interact over a specific issue. And then in the conversation view over here, I can, for example, say, go over here and say, for example, I'm a resolved thread, I want to hide them. Okay, and this would, again, if I'll do a refresh here, okay, so now you can see the resolved thread. First of all, it's automatically collapsed, but I can also say, hey, show me this view without the resolved thread, and then it would disappear. Okay, so this is the thread that we went over where we resolved those issues. Okay. Other things that we wanted to show you here. Oh, by the way, let's click merge here to merge Joe's changes. Like that. This would, by the way, would fire up our build job, and we'll start a pipeline to deploy our little Monday demo application. All right, let's go back over here and I'll show you again a few things on the front side of Git. For example, if I were for some reason doing changes on this branch, for example, maybe there's an issue I need to resolve. I need to change, for example, this button to say instead of where are you, something like you are here. Okay, I made some changes. So all of those changes, of course, are tracked in our little Git area over here. You can see the modified file, the HTML file. I can click on it and I can now do something like compare, and I can compare it with the head or with a specific revision. Okay, so I can compare it with the stage where we added the PWA. I do a compare and I can see, okay, this is where things change. So I can see exactly what changes were made. By the way, you can see it either as a collapsed, one above the other, or side by side. Okay? And you can navigate between the changes like that. So this is helpful for you to know what changes were done in a specific file. Okay? The other thing that you're able to do is, of course, rollback of a file if you want to. So for example, let's suppose the changes I just made here on this file are actually changes that I did in the wrong branch. I didn't need to do it on feature 1. What I can do now is I can go over here and I can do stash of those changes, call it change title on button. And I stash this. Okay. So now what you're going to see is it's back to where are you instead of you are here. So we're back to how we were before, nothing harmed, everything is back to normal. I can now go and switch to another branch, Okay, so let's get a new branch, button fixes, for example. Okay, so this is going to take whatever code I have, create a branch out of it. So it should be for main, hopefully. Yeah, let's see. Running into a little problem here. We're gonna go for main and create button features because I had a space over there. All right, and this creates a new branch for me. Okay, so this is a new copy of my code. And now I can go back and open the file I was looking into. Oh, sorry, it's in main, and main was like didn't have any of the features. All right, so let's might need to do a pull for main. Right. Anyway, what I could do now is I can do unstash of the changes and apply them to the new version. So we have this stash and unstash capabilities over here. All right, in the meantime, I can see that my Monday demo deploy finished. So let's switch over back into our VBA studio area, look at the build jobs, and yeah, the deploy of Monday just finished now. If we go to our environments, and we're now deploying into our QA environments, and we look at the deployment, we would have our Monday demo over here. Okay, so we can click on it, and this would open our little application. Okay, so this is the application we built. Now, the interesting thing to note here is we mark this application as a progressive web app. Therefore, if you click inside the URL, you would see those new icons here. One of them allows you to install this as a progressive web apps on your desktop. And this then becomes kind of a desktop application that runs outside of the browser. The other one gives you a QR code that you can scan and invoke the application on your device. Okay, so one nice thing that you can do, if you have a cell phone next to you, you can actually scan this QR code because I made this application public. So if I do this, I'm going to scan it with my phone. I'm trying to show you my phone while I'm scanning it. So maybe we'll do it this way. We'll take my phone, put it on the side, take this page, resize it a little bit, and then I'm going to click here. Sorry, I have a little windowing issue here. Let me see if I can move this here like that. Okay, click here. All right, this is my phone. I'm going to invoke my camera after I unlock my phone. like that. Okay, and I'm going to scan the QR code. You can do the same thing. When you click on it, this would open the application in your browser. Okay, and your application would work in your browser. One thing you can do now is if you have a menu up here, you should see an option. You can see it down here to install app. This is on Android. If you're on an iOS, there's a share button in iOS. If you click on the share, there's a add to homepage option. I'm going to use the install app over here. This is going to prompt me to install an application on my device. I'm going to say install the apps. This is now installing the application on my device. Notice this is the application running inside the browser. So you have the URL area up here. But now on my device, if I go back over here, I have an icon for my application. And if I click on it, my application would open without the browser around it. Remember the navigation. I'm going to close this for a second. This is how it looks on desktop. There's navigation menus here. Our template is responsive. So now on the mobile device, if you click the little hamburger menu, you still have the navigation. If you click the where are you, it's going to give you the information on where you are over here. Now, if you do it on your phone, again, you can pick up this QR code. It's going to give you another location because apparently you're not in the same house as me, hopefully. The other thing you can do is you can take a photo. Okay, it would invoke your camera on your device. You can smile to the camera, say hello, click and take a picture, click OK, and your picture would be brought into your application. We just forgot to resize the picture to make it a little smaller. So this is, by the way, something we can do now. We can go back to our application. Okay, we'll switch back to, let's say, switch branch. Let's work for a second on main directly. Okay. Okay, we'll do a refresh to get rid of all of those little things over here. Sorry, maybe I should not work on main. I should work on the branch I was on, feature one. Yeah, switch to this one. There we go. So we can go to the page that we created, okay, and maybe switch, instead of using a big image over here, we can switch it to use an avatar. So let's look up in our components, and we'll pick an avatar component and add it over here to the page. Let's say just down here. Okay, we can remove the image component that we have here. Okay, take the avatar, make it a bit bigger, and then assign it to the same variable that we had before, image. So we did some changes over here. We can again push those changes into our Git repository. Go and do a merge request process. We'll do this one quickly. I'm just going to add myself as a reviewer, then go back to our page, go into the merge request and approve this and merge it. Again, if you look, now we just have one file that was changed. Okay, actually two files. One is the JSON with the new component and the other one is the HTML. We'll merge this. This would build your application and will release a new version to your devices. So while it's doing this, I'm going to show you in the build area the new OIC capabilities of building Oracle Integration Cloud configurations. Okay, in the build steps that you have here, in the steps, you can now add a step for Oracle integration. So for example, you can take an existing integration in Oracle Integration and export it. To do this, you would need to map an integration instance, okay, in your environments over here. Then you can provide your username and password. And then you can choose which integration you want to export. You can actually do a search there. So again, search for all the integrations of a specific user. Okay, and it goes over to the integration instance, fetches all the integrations that are in there. You can, for example, say, okay, I'm interested in the countries integration, so you can filter this list, of course. Okay, and then pick up, for example, this one and say, I want to export it. Okay, so it picks up the integration, export it. You can also export the recordings. Okay, and then you can store this. It would basically create the IAR file out of it. You can store it for the next step and the next build, and the next build can use and import this integration into another instance of Oracle Integration Cloud, for example. So this would allow you, for example, to take an integration from your dev instance, bring it into your QA, and then into your test if you want to. And again, all of this is related to the environments feature that we have here. When you create, when you are working on an environment in the service instances, you can add an instance. We would look up all the integration cloud instances that are in your environment. You can also map external integrations that are not in your tenancy by doing this option over here. All right, we're going to have a blog about all these capabilities of working with integration published probably sometime later this week. All right, let's see what's the status of our build pipeline. Still running right now. It's doing deployment. So while it's doing the deployment here, I'll go back to my page. What you would want to do is you want to close the application that was open. Okay, and remember, you still have the icon of the application on your device. Okay, so the minute that this finishes doing the update, the deployment, which it just did, you can now open this application again. What it's doing now is it's updating the application, and now you can see the avatar here. So now if I take a photo, again, from here, let me take a photo of my demo. So we'll do an infinity photo like this and click OK. This is now part of my demo. You can do the same thing on your device. Again, all you need to do is go over, scan this QR code, and invoke the application on your machine. And then to remove the application, you just uninstall it like you do any regular application on your phone. And again, the other thing I wanted to show while I'm over here, the application is responsive. So if I turn my device sideways, I move my emulator over here, you can now see the menu options here. Okay, so I can navigate at the top. If I move it this way into portrait mode, it's over here. Okay. You can also see the icon for the sign out, which now looks like this. Okay. And if I go like this, it's over here. All right, so this is progressive web apps on your phone from a web application that you created here. We also saw device integration. We saw some of the merge request capabilities. We saw a lot of things today. And there are even more new features that we didn't have time to cover today. Those are covered in our documentation. So if you go to docs.oracle.com, look at the what's new features, and you would see what's new in the August release over there. If you have any questions about what you've seen today, hopefully you leverage the Q&A tab. If not, we have our forums on the Cloud Customer Connect. You can go over there. There's a Visual Builder and a Visual Builder Studio forums, and you can ask questions over there. We have a new blog entry that covers some of those new features, again, listing them over there on our VBCS page. And we're going to have other blog entries coming up in the next couple of weeks, showing some of those new features in more details. Again, if you're on LinkedIn, we would love you to join our Oracle Visual Builder group on LinkedIn. We are keeping this group focused on everything that has to do with Visual Builder. We're posting things like announcement about the new version, new blog entries, seminars, events, and job posts that relate to Visual Builder. So please join us out there and join our growing community. That's about all the time we had for today. Let me see if there's any open questions. No, I don't see any open questions right now in our Q&A. So thanks everyone for joining us today. Hopefully this has been enjoyable for you and you learned some new things. start taking advantage of the new version of Visual Builder, and we're hoping to see you in our next seminar pretty soon. Thanks, everyone. Have a great day.